How's it? Welcome back. Check these bad boys out. They've grown pretty damn well in the greenhouse, and I'm actually pretty happy with them. But now they're getting to a point we're going to have to transplant. So to do that, we need to get an aquaponic system, or a hydroponic system rather, set up. So I've got a bunch of stuff here. I've got a pump, I've got little pots, I've got piping, I've got grow medium, I've got fittings, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't think I'm going to explain it all now. I'm rather going to show you as I go through the process. But just to give you a basic of what I'm going to do, I'm going to be using the square down pipe as my trays for my hydroponic system. I'm going to cut it up, I'm going to cut holes in it, and then I'm going to suspend these pots in that. So if you just look at this little offcut, basically I'm going to cut a 50mm hole in the top. I'm going to put the pot in, it's going to sit inside like this, and water's going to flow in the one side, flow out the other side, so there's a constant flow of nutrients going through the system 24 hours a day. And that should help all these plants grow beautifully. I'm going to explain as I go along. Let's get started. So what I've got here is a 3-meter length of down pipe. I'm just going to cut it in half, so I've got two 1.5mm sections, and those will form two sections of my system. So I'm only going to do that for now, and I'm going to see how it works, and then I can expand at a later stage. I've used a big enough pump and a big enough reservoir, and I've sized the system to be able to expand quite far. But just to start, I want to get 2 rows going and see how that starts to work. So I'm just going to quickly cut this in half. So I don't think a miter saw was the best thing for that. It actually gave me a bit of a blowout to the back here, and it cracked this one a little bit. I think that saw is just a bit violent for this PVC. It's quite brittle. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to have to trim the end off here with something else, something a bit less hectic. Maybe just a handsaw, just so I can trim out this crack and this crappy looking end here. So I wouldn't use a miter saw for this in the future. Much better cut. So the next thing we got to do here is make holes in this piping with these little baskets. Now when I ordered them, they said it needs a 50mm hole. I've got a 51mm hole saw here, and it looks like it's about the right size. I can see from the top it's not so big that the basket will fall all the way through, so I think it's probably going to be what we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out everywhere I want holes in this piping. I'm not sure what the spacing should be. Now I was thinking if I've got a 50mm hole here, and if I want to look at the next hole, I think I need to leave double the width of the basket between the holes, which means I need to leave 3 hole diameters center to center. So it'll be 100mm from the edge to the edge, and then there'll be another basket here, 100mm apart. Now I'm not sure if that's the right spacing, but the cool thing is I can always just leave a hole empty if I find that what I'm trying to grow is too big for that location, or it's not quite working out. I can always just skip a hole and leave it open. So I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use a chalk line to just cast the line dead center down here, and then I'll measure 100mm gaps, and then I can drill those all out. Then I know they're all going to be in exactly the same line. They will be in the straight row. Cool, so those are all nicely marked out. So I've got 9 per pipe, so I'm going to have 9 pots each, total of 18 on this first stage. So I'm just going to take a drill press, or my drill press, and a 50mm hole saw, and I'm going to cut these all out. So we've drilled all the holes, and the fit is great. So these baskets fit perfectly in there. There's just a little bit off the bottom, so that means that almost no water flow will get to the bottom of these baskets, which means the plant should grow, even in the worst case scenario. So now we need to start thinking about the water. Now first of all, there's a big gaping hole in the pipe. So I'm going to have to make some sort of a blank that I'm going to be able to glue and seal into the ends here to make this kind of like to make it a sealed pipe. Then we need to think about getting water in and getting water out. So getting water in is easy. I've got this black tubing that's going to be my inlet tubing. I'm just going to drill a hole in the one end, and I'm going to stick this in there, and this is going to be the water flow in. But getting the water out is another story. Now, I've seen a couple of options on the internet. I've been thinking about it for a while, and what I've actually decided to do is I've got these grommets. Now, this grommet can go into the bottom of this pipe, and then I've got a 25mm PVC coupling, and that PVC coupling fits pretty tight inside this grommet. But what I can do with this is I can create an overflow. So if my pipe is installed like this, my grommet's installed, I can decide how much water I always want to remain in the bottom of these lines. But there'll still be constant flow, because once it fills up to just above this, it's going to overflow out of the outlet. And then I can actually adjust this according to my needs. Now, the reason I want to make sure that there's always going to be water inside the system, and it's not completely open at the end, is pretty much load shedding or any sort of power cut. If the power goes off, the system drains, all the roots that have no moisture, they can dry out, and your plants are going to die. And I think that can probably happen quite quick. So I want to make sure that even if the power goes out, I still have water maintained in the bottom of the system. And that's why I'm going to do something like this. So I'm going to have this grommet, I'm going to drill a hole for it now, and this very tight fitting socket here. I think I'll probably have to lube it up with some Vaseline to get it back in once I drill the hole. And then I'm just going to make sure I've sealed all the way nicely around this, inside this section, and that should give me a good outlet seal. So I'm going to drill the holes, then I'm going to make up some blanks here, and I'm going to silicone those in. So check this out. I just used an offcut here as a template. I put it on top of the pipe, ended up with these little curved edges, and I made some pretty good little end caps here. So I'm just going to clean these up a bit, and then I'm just going to silicone them into place, and then we're going to leave all of the setup to dry, and we're going to start working on the water system. Okay, so I've sealed up those two pipes. They're looking pretty good. So I'm going to let those dry for a while before I start filling with them. I don't want to loosen anything up until they're pretty dry. Then I'll find a way to mount them on the wall, and then we could start sort of plumbing it up, I think, tomorrow. But in the meantime now, I just need to start assembling the pump and the reservoir tank, and we can get all that sort of thing in place. So my idea is to have a pump that's going to basically have a pressurized line with a little bleed off to control the pressure in the line, and off that line, or that header, I'm just going to tee off to all the spots where I need water. The reason I've got a sort of bleed off valve is I don't want the pump to be putting full pressure into the system all the time. It's a waste of electricity, it puts strain on all the components, it puts strain on the pump. So I just want to get enough pressure to get the flow rate I require for my system. Now, as a rule of thumb, your hydroponic system flow rate, I understand, is meant to be, you're meant to exchange the water in your system twice per hour. So if you've got a 100-liter tank, you need to get 200 liters of nutrient or flow through your system every hour. Now, my pump that I bought is a 1400 liter an hour pump, but that's at 0 head. I'm going to be pumping 1.6 meters up. I don't have the curve for the pump, so I don't know what that flow rate is expected to be, but I'm pretty confident I'm going to get more than 200 liters an hour, because I've got a 100-liter reservoir. So we will definitely test it once we get the system up and running, and then we'll adjust that bleed-off valve to get enough pressure in the system to get that minimum flow rate. Alright, so this is the pump I've got. Like I was mentioning, I actually checked, the pump curve is on the side of the box here, so at the head that we're going to be pumping, which is about 1.5, 1.6 meters, we're probably going to get a flow rate in the region of 350 to 400 liters an hour, best case. So this pump is more than sufficient to get the complete flow we need, but we will measure it once it's installed. So it came with this outlet, which is actually slightly smaller than my pipe. I just use the instructions on the website. That's not a big problem. What I'll do is I'll just heat up this pipe, and I'll just put a one of these, can't remember what they're called, worm screw, whatever it is, pipe clamp. Ooh, yeah, pipe clamp. I'll just put one of these pipe clamps on. Now I've already measured my tank to how far I want this to come out before I have to put a bend in, and that's going to be 600. So I want to cut a 600 mm piece of pipe. We're going to attach it to here, and we're going to get this assembly done right. Then at the top, I'm going to put an elbow on, and then we're going to have to put it into place and just measure the rest of the lengths that we're going to get to where we want to be. Cool, so there's our piece of pipe, a little bit bent, but what I'll do is I'll just put it in the sun and try and bend it straight in the sun, or maybe I'll just use a bit of heat shed to try and straighten out that curve. So let's do that now. You don't want to make it too hot, otherwise you're going to make a hole in it, or you're going to burn it, and then you'll get a leak. So, I'm just going to put this pipe clamp on. There we go. Now you don't want to tighten this up too much either, because you could just crack the outlet and that'll be a real hassle, because I don't know how easy it'll be to get spares for this. But that is definitely on there tight enough. So we've got that sorted. We screwed into our pump here. Ooh, a bit loose, but that's pretty much where we want it to be. So now the next thing we're going to have to do is actually make holes in the lid of our tank, our reservoir. So this is going to be our reservoir. It's just a 110 litre big box that I bought. I'm just going to drill a hole in here because I want to get this pipe in, and then I'm going to have to drill another hole to let the return line from where the tee-off is going to be, and then I'm going to have to drill a third hole in here that's going to be the return line from the system. So once the water's flowed through the system, it's going to return into this tank in some way. So I'm not exactly sure where that hole's going to be yet. What I do know is where my hole for the pump's going to be, because I've already measured that. So I'm going to make a hole for the pump. Then I know I'm always going to be able to loosen this or pull it off to get the pump out. So I'm not going to have to make a slot or anything. I'm just going to make a hole, feed the pipe through the hole, and on this end it'll be the same story, and same for the return line. So I don't have to make any sort of permanent or any sort of like cutouts that I have to slide over. And then the last hole I'll have to make is just the hole for the electrical cable to come out. So let me go ahead and just start making those holes. Nice. Okay, so that's that hole. And now, before we can drill anything else on the top of this, we're going to have to start assembling this in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the box, I'm going to put it where it needs to be, I'm going to put the lid on, and then we'll start working from that. So this is the spot we've got to work with here. You can see it's not quite level, it's actually on a bit of a slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just level this out a bit, because we're going to remember we're going to have like 100 liters of water, so 100 kilos sitting in the bottom of a pretty flimsy base. So I want to give it a nice solid base at the bottom, level it out so that we've got a really firm base for our reservoir, and then we sort of reduce the risk of it failing or bursting or getting damaged. So I'm going to go and do that now. I've got some sand, so I'm just going to make a little sand base here, make this level so that we've got something good to work off. Cool, well that looks pretty close to level. I'm not too worried about compacting the sand too much. Once this weight's in here, it's sort of compact itself, but as long as it starts level, it's going to hopefully just compact and stay level. And then I'll just clean up this little bit of sand around here. When I'm completely done, it's full of water and this is dirty, and I'll just do a bit of a cleanup all around. Okay, you've got to give me a bit of a break for the shot. Half of it's in super bright sunlight and half of it's in the shade.
so it's going to be a bit all over the place, but this is the plan now. Here's our outlet pipe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put an elbow on here, across to here. Halfway along, I'm going to put a T-piece in, so we can put our return valve in, and we can have a spot to return it into the tank. Then I'm going to put another elbow there, go almost up to the top of the wall, and then I'm just going to put a stop end in, and that's going to basically be my pressurized header. And then off that, I will install the lines that are going to feed each one of the hydroponic systems. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that now. Nice. Okay, so this header is now installed. Basically, if I disconnect it now, it'll just be a pressurized line that will stay pressurized. And now I just want to install this little T off here. So I'm going to install the T-piece right in the middle here. In fact, maybe here towards the end. And then I'll have space to install this valve quickly. So let me do that. Okay, so I've measured the length of pipe I want here. I'm going to take it 400 down. So I don't want to hear it running the whole time, because I'm already going to hear some running water from the return line. But I'm going to send it far down into the tank, but I'm going to make it short enough that I'll start to hear the water running here when the level inside here is getting low compared to the pump suction. So it'll kind of be an early warning to that. I haven't checked my water level and it's a bit low. So I'm going to make it long enough to normally sit in the water, but short enough to warn me that I'm running out of water for the pump. Cool. So there we go. We've got our return, our pressurized header. We've got our little valve that we can use to adjust the flow rate or the pressure, and that's pretty good. I just want to mention you can put clamps around here. They're actually called hose clamps. I couldn't remember earlier. You could put hose clamps around here, but I think this is such a low pressure system that it's not going to really be required. I don't think there's enough pressure in the system to actually leak out of these connections or to blow them off. If it becomes an issue later on, it's something that might change. So now that this is done, the next step is going to be actually mounting the growing sections and then the return water line also into this tank. So now I'm going to start looking through the grow sections, how I'm going to mount them on the wall, where I'm going to place them, get those mounted up, and then I can look at the return line. So this is the wall I'm going to be working with here. I know exactly where I want to place them on the wall. Although the sun's up here at the moment, most of the day I get enough sun up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is where I get sun almost all day, every day, in the winter. So that's sort of like where I want to make the lowest point of the system. So I'm going to install the first one here. I'm going to install the second one over here. So I want to go ahead and start installing the first one of these trays. Now, I don't necessarily want to put it on a slope. I can, and if anything, it must be on a slope toward the drain. But it can be completely level. And that's because it's got the little overflow, which is like a little weir. So it can be level. It doesn't have to slope down, because as it fills up, it'll start to drain into that little overflow that I've put in the bottom. So I just want to make sure it doesn't have a tilt to the feed side. Otherwise I'm going to get a little bit of a build up there. It's not the end of the world. As long as it's reasonably level, it's going to be okay, but I'm going to aim for perfectly level. And if I have to have the slope, or if it ends up with the slope, I'm going to make sure it's that way. Okay, so my phone was full and I didn't realize. But in the meantime, what I've done is I've mounted up all the brackets for the grow systems, or the grow sections. And what I'm going to do next is run the water from the main header to the ends of the systems where the inlet sides are. So I'm going to run 2 separate pipes, one for each, so that if one's leaking, maybe I don't want to use one, maybe one's empty, there's an issue, I can only run one or the other or both, but they're pretty much independent. So to do that, I'm going to actually run the tubing inside these little mortar grooves here, so that it's nicely hidden, all the way from the header there. Then I'll bring one up to the top here into this sun, and one down to this guy over here. So let's go ahead and do that now. So this is my first piece of piping, and the way this works is you just use one of these spiky barb connector things. You use this spiky guy here, make a hole in the pipe, push in the barb, push it onto this end, and you're done, and that's the connection, and it shouldn't leak, hopefully. Again, it's pretty cold, so these things are not so flexible. I'm going to do the same trick, blow a torch, heat it up a bit, should make it easier. Cool, so there it is, it's nicely on tight like that. So that's the one connection, and now I'm going to bring it around this side here. I think I'm just going to loop it around a bit, and then I'm going to just stick a spike in there and mount it there. There we go. I think I got it. So it's weird that these things work as well as they do. It shouldn't leak. Hopefully it won't leak, because the pressure behind it actually forces it to seal. That's the first one done. Let's get the second line in. Yeah. So what I can do later on is I can actually put little inline taps here if I wanted to just isolate one of these individually and easily. Otherwise I'd have to probably pull it off and crimp it or something. Now it's time to mount the systems, get these connected, and do the outlet side. So what I'm going to do on the outlets here is I'm using just 25mm PVC conduit, electrical conduit, because that's the socket that I had that fits in the grommet. So I had a 25 socket there, which means a 25mm pipe fits in there, got an elbow, got a little PCA, and I've got a T-piece on the end. So I'm sort of building up the system like this, same on this one. Then I'm just going to run 25mm conduit down, to here, down, corner, and then back into my reservoir. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to glue the whole system together. It's a pretty tight fit, but I want to be able to remove it. So what I might do is glue sort of this together and not this section, or maybe I'll glue that and not that. I'm just going to see what leaks when I water test it, and then I'll decide exactly what I want to get together and I want to make permanent. But for now I'm just going to mark up the system, get everything cut to size, and get the holes mounted for the supports. And then tomorrow, when all the silicones are dry, we'll do a water test and a leak test to make sure everything is sharp. And I think that is good for today. I'm going to let all the silicone that I've done dry nicely overnight. I've completed this whole drain system. All I've got left to do is just to drill a hole in here, down pipe into the reservoir, and then we're good to go. So tomorrow we can test everything, leak test it, glue up what needs to be glued up here, and we can run water. So it's the next day, and all the silicone is nicely set. I've done a bit of a leak test on the system, and it seems that it's leaking pretty much at every one of these joints, which is kind of to be expected because they haven't actually been glued together yet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to glue all these joints together, and then we can start mixing up the solution that's going to run through the system. And that's all glued up. Now, if you sharp-eyed, you might notice I'm wearing completely different clothes to when I started, and that's because I ran out of glue. So I got some more today. Just quickly glued this up, and now we're just about ready to go. So the last thing we have to do is just mix up our nutrient solution to go in here, and that really is going to depend on what nutrient solution you've got, what you're growing, at what stage of the growth process it is. And there's a whole bunch of information you can find online. There's details and tables according to what you've got, what you need to mix to go into your reservoir for the solution. So while this is all drying, I'm going to mix up the solution, and then we can pot the plants and stick them in, and we are running. So everything seems to be running nicely here. Well, one minor leak at the top, which I'll deal with later. And now we're just going to put some of these seedlings into pots and chuck them in. So this is the grow medium I'm using. It's like a clay stuff. I'm not too sure about it. I don't know much about these sort of things. I'm not really even sure how you're meant to install it. But I think I'll just try and hold these seedlings in the middle and just put the stuff around it. So what's cool about this stuff is it is reusable. So one of the benefits over some of the other mediums is that this one is completely reusable. So I don't know if that's right. I don't know. Try to do this one a little bit deeper in. And then we just chuck them in the system. So there we go, first seedlings in the hydroponic system. These are coriander. I'm not sure if I've done it right. I'm not sure if I've got enough water or too much water in the bottom. I'm not sure if I planted them at the right depth. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. So in about a week, I'm sure we'll see what's going on, what's doing well, what's dying. But I'm going to plant all the seedlings I've got available, or at least all the spaces I've got available. And then I will post regular updates on my Instagram. So check it out at ChrisDoesStuffZA. I hope you found this video interesting or useful. Please let me know in the comments if you've got any suggestions, any ideas, any comments, any criticisms. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to constantly improve on this sort of thing. I'm hoping this works well because I'd really like to expand a system like this and start growing a lot more stuff at home. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you want. Consider subscribing to the channel and stay safe.